Good evening, welcome to Central News for Monday, the 3rd of February. I'm Hilary Entwistle. The cast of the Z-Nail Gang were busy running through lines in the weekend for the community film to be shot in Te Puke and surrounding areas. The feature film is the creation of a Pukehina local couple, telling the story of an anti-mining campaign in a small Coromandel community in the 1980s. Producer Kylie Delabarca-Steele says for the making of the film, they have called on the community.
So we're making a movie called The Z-Nail Gang. It's a community resource film, which means we're making it with no budget, but all of the community in Te Puke are getting behind it for locations, for our cast, for our crew. It's a really exciting project, and it's based on the anti-mining protests from the Coromandel in the 1980s, an action comedy.
The lack of 1- and 2-bedroom houses is an issue in many places in the country and was identified as a problem in the Bay of Plenty. In a recent Demographia survey, the Bay of Plenty was found to be the second most unaffordable market in the country when comparing median house price to average income. Western Bay of Plenty's growth management strategy, Smart Growth's independent chair, Bill Waisley, says the lack of 1- to 2-bedroom houses is a key issue they would like to address.
Certainly, some of the smart growth actions involve undertaking further research around that matter in terms of the demographic trends, and over time there being more 1- and 2-person families and the need to provide for a range of housing typologies such as the 1- or 2-bedroom houses. So it's actually working quite closely in understanding what that need is, where that is likely to occur, and then what may be needed to be undertaken to assist in addressing that. Bearing in mind that the housing provision is essentially provided by the market.
Now for our region's weather, Hamilton, your Tuesday will have fine spells and light winds with an expected high of 24 and an overnight low of 13. Tauranga, fine spells and light winds too. Your expected high is 24 and an overnight low of 16. Just ahead, the psychoactive substances policy is being pushed forward. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. The Hamilton City Council has responded to the community's calls for a quicker process to create the new psychoactive substance policy for Hamilton by giving people the chance to have their say early. We thought now would be a good time to look back at our interview with Councillor Angela O'Leary to remind us what the proposed policy is and why you should have your say.
Tell me about the 2 proposed locations to sell these legal highs.
The 2 locations that Council have put in the policy to consult on only, the first one is the CBD. The Central Business District area in town has a high amount of CCTV cameras, and obviously there's lots of people around, so there's sort of an active surveillance that goes along with that. The Waikato DHB and the police are in favour of that location. The second location or second option that we've put in the policy is the CBD and Te Rapa, and that's Te Rapa Road, so it's in an industrial area. The third option that we've put is tell us what you know, maybe someone out there's got a better idea, because Council doesn't want these anywhere in the city, but we just can't ban them.
Why a central city focus? Is it because of the CCTVs?
It is because of the CCTVs and the sheer number of people that are here. It's also easier on police resources because they walk the beat, and there's also City Safe officers here. So it really is just a sort of a concentration of people and activity that make that I guess it's going to make it safer.
Is there a fear that having these so-called puff shops in the CBD are going to make it a less inviting place to dine, to socialise and more importantly to shop?
Yes, there is a very real fear, and I agree with that. I think that it will. The puff shop that's in Hamilton East at the moment overnight has dramatically changed that area, and that's just unacceptable. And I think, you know, it's not unrealistic to assume that if we go with just the CBD, you're just going to pick those problems up and you're going to put them in the central business district. It's just not, it's not good.
Can anyone make a submission on this particular policy?
Yes, anyone can make a submission on this policy, and I really encourage them to do that. We need to hear the community's views, and as I said, Council doesn't want this. We would love to ban it from the city, but we can't. We can't break the law. And I'm also encouraging people that I talk to please lobby their local MPs and the new candidates. It's a central government election year this year. They need to understand how dramatic these legal highs are having on our community.
Hamilton City Council can't ban the sale of psychoactive substances. How do you control where these legal highs are sold?
So under the Act we can develop a policy, and that's out for submissions at the moment, and in that policy we are very restricted in what we can put in there. We can find an area in the city, restrict them to an area in the city where the retailers can set up, and we can put buffer zones around sensitive sites like schools, playgrounds, museums, churches, maraes, and we can also put, those shops can't set up in those sensitive site areas, and we can also put a buffer zone around another retailer selling the same product, and we've done that in our policy, and that's a 1/2 kilometre radius.
Why is the CBD in Hamilton City an option to sell psychoactive substances?
So the reason that is in the policy and going out for consultation is because in the CBD there's a high concentration of CCTV cameras, police walk the beat, there's city safe officers, and there's a high concentration of people and workers and people moving around the city. So there's more people actively participating in that sort of surveillance of any sort of naughty activity that's going to be happening, rather than allowing the stores to go into the suburbs where there are fewer people.
CBD retailers don't want these puff shops in their neighbourhood. Can you understand their point of view? I
absolutely understand their point of view and completely agree with them. Council doesn't want these stores anywhere in Hamilton, but we can't make legislation we can't make policy that's against the law. We would be breaking the law. So the CBD Association and the businesses in town have every right to not want this in their area. So I know we're going to be getting some strong submissions from them.
Tell me about option 2, which is the CBD and Te Rapa. Surely an industrial area would be preferable?
Well, yes, on the face of it, it definitely would. However, there are still a lot of retail out in the Te Rapa area, and there are a lot of cafes and things that are childcare centres and things that attract families there as well. So, as I said before, the best place for these stores to set up is nowhere, but we have to put them somewhere.
You mentioned sensitive areas. Is the CBD not a sensitive area with restaurants and the library both in close proximity?
The CBD as a whole isn't, but all of those things are. So Garden Place, there are a variety of education institutions in town. They are all sensitive. So effectively putting a 100-metre buffer zone around all the sensitive sites in the CBD, we're restricting the sites where these stores can go to a small place quite close to the police station, south of the city, and another small place north of the city. It would effectively take the city down from, at the moment we've got 9 stores, it would reduce it to 1 or 2.
Even though the council has brought forward the hearing and deliberation dates, public feedback on the draft policies remains the same. Additional hearing dates have been added to allow more time for submissions to be heard. Submissions close on Monday the 17th of February, and hearings will commence as soon as possible afterwards. Visit hamilton.co.nz to find out how you can have your say. Coming up next, we stay in Hamilton and look at an insight into the housing unaffordability. Welcome back. Despite being labelled seriously unaffordable in an international affordability survey, the Hamilton Waikato region had the second most affordable housing in New Zealand, coming in behind Palmerston North. Anne-Marie spoke with Campbell Scott from Harcourts in Hamilton regarding the survey's findings.
According to the survey, the median house price in Hamilton Waikato has risen to $303,400. How does this compare with what you're seeing?
Yeah, what we're seeing in the market is an increase in the prices. Over the last 2 years or so, they have increased from what was probably the low of the market in perhaps 2010 or 2011. So we've seen about an 8% increase on median prices over the last 12 months. That's been driven largely by buyer confidence. There's a lot more reasons for buyers to get out into the market at the moment, and so we're seeing buyers come out in greater numbers, and that hasn't been met by a new amount of stock coming on to cater for that demand. So increased demand, decreased supply, prices go up.
So with reference to the survey, is comparing Hamilton housing with Las Vegas housing comparing apples with apples?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a stretch, that one. I don't think most of us give a moment's thought to what prices in LA might be doing when we're looking to buy property in the Hamilton or the Waikato area. There's a lot of factors that come into buying a home and into the things that are important. Interest rates are important, obviously. Employment prospects are important. Largely the type of property that we're buying is quite different here. Now, I'd be surprised if the average 3-bedroom standalone home features as prominently in the Las Vegas market as a comparison than what it would do in the Waikato market here. So, much more highly density, populated areas probably have quite different factors that affect their market, and yeah, I don't think it's of interest to most of our buyers.
There's talk of interest rates rising. How do you think that will affect the property market at the moment?
Yes, interest rates will rise. It's just a case of when they go up and to what extent they go up, I suppose. We've enjoyed historically low interest rates for some time now, so I think it would be unreasonable to expect that they stayed that way for a long time. We would expect to see those rising at some stage this year, and that always has some effect. That will concern some buyers and it may deter some interest. But for the most part, we're still in a very good market here, and we've got a long way to go before we get to the interest rate peaks that we had several years ago.
What's your take on the Hamilton Waikato property market?
Yeah, I think whether you're looking to buy or you're looking to sell, it is a good market at the moment. There's a lot of confidence in Hamilton, a lot of construction and development being done here, a lot of money being put into the area, and both parties seem quite happy to transact. So it's a good market to get amongst it, some good opportunities to be had.
Campbell, you see a lot of houses in your role as branch manager for Harcourts Hamilton. What's your take on the property market?
We're enjoying a very buoyant market at the moment, Anne-Marie. We've got a lot of buyers who are looking to purchase properties right across the price points. We've got a good number of homes that are being sold each month. In fact, the number of homes has been increasing month on month compared to the same month in the prior year. So, there's a lot of reasons why you should get amongst the Hamilton market, the Waikato market. A lot of money being spent here on new infrastructure and construction, and confidence is generally good. It's a good market, and I think we should expect to see much of the same over 2014.
Are there any areas in particular that are standing out?
Yeah, I think there's certainly pockets where it's harder to get property if you're looking to buy than it might be in some other places. Some of the school zones here that are very sought after, if you're trying to buy into those zones, you'll find a little bit difficult at the moment. If you're looking for homes in the northeast corner of Hamilton, a lot of demand there and not as much supply to cater for that buyer interest. So a little bit more challenging in those parts of Hamilton. But that all bodes well for people who own property there at the moment. Prices are certainly favouring those people at this time.
The new loan-to-value restrictions came into being in October 2013. What effect are you seeing them have on the market?
Yes, I think any change does bring effect to different sectors of the market. Initially, when the changes were made in October, there were obviously a number of buyers who were looking to lend above 80% who were disappointed to find that they could no longer do that. Already within 3 months of that change having been put in place, we're seeing lenders come out with terms that are more favourable than that. Just this week, Mortgage Express announced a new package or lending available exclusively through them for buyers who are looking to buy with deposits of less than 20. We've already seen some of the main lenders relax their criteria around that, and I think we'll start to see more of that this year as the dust settles a little bit for the banks and they realise how much of their book they have got to lend to people with less than 20% deposit, and as they find perhaps new and more creative ways to cater for that buyer demand. There's a lot of buyers out there who still recognise the benefits of home ownership and want to be a part of that. So yeah, it's not all bad news for those people. There's some good opportunities there to be had.
Now, it's said that real estate goes in 7-year cycles. The last peak was around 2007. Is it fair to say we're on the way up again?
Yeah, I think we probably saw the low of the market in perhaps about 2010, 2011. And of course we don't know it's the low until things start improving, and they have been doing that since then. All of the factors that we measure in the market, such as auction clearance rates, for example, the number of monthly sales, the median price, those sorts of measures have been increasing quite steadily since that time, and there's no reason why 2014 shouldn't see more of that.
When we look at the Hamilton Waikato region, we know why we love to live here, but what attracts people to the region, especially to the property market?
We've got quite a diverse market in Hamilton. We've got a very large university which attracts a lot of students, a lot of investors to cater for those students. We have a very large hospital with the Waikato Hospital, brings a lot of employment into the area. We have a number of large corporates who base themselves here and who do a lot of business here around the dairying industry, particularly with Fonterra. So there's a number of reasons to live here. Cost of entry into our Hamilton market is reasonable, I think. You get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of the content and what your money can buy here compared to some of the bigger centres. So there's a number of reasons to purchase property in Hamilton or in the Waikato region, a number of reasons to live here, and certainly our inward migration or our inward population has been increasing steadily over recent years as a result of those things.
Just ahead, how to volunteer at the Riding for the Disabled. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. Tauranga Riding for the Disabled is holding an open day tomorrow for volunteers to train how to use equine assisted learning. I found out what this is.
So it's something called EGALA, Equine Assisted Learning, and there are all forms of horse riding therapy and equestrian therapy, and this is one where they don't actually ride the horse, but they have to perform tasks using horses as the tools or the facilitators, and it can be a form of counselling. You can have a qualified counsellor, therapist there, as well as an equine specialist, and they might have to do something like get into role and do different tasks, or perhaps the horse is the soccer ball and they have goal nets at either side and they have to manoeuvre a horse into the goal without touching each other or touching the animal, so they have to communicate, and it brings out certain emotions, and they have to work together as a team. So great for team building and also great as a counselling tool.
Why horses?
Well, horses, they don't lie, they're straight up, they don't play games with people, they have their own behaviour, and if you treat them with respect, they will treat you with respect. They do things in certain ways, so if you approach them with aggression or anxiety or too quickly, they will move away from you, whereas if you approach them calmly and sensitively, they will warm to you and come to you. And because of that, they're the perfect tool, really. Yeah.
Now you teach people on the volunteer day an emergency dismount. What is that?
Yeah, sounds scary, doesn't it? Well, a lot of our riders, there can be one reason or another why we need to get them off very quickly. It may be that the rider's having a seizure, or the rider with an intellectual disability may just suddenly decide they've seen something over there and they're throwing themselves off the horse, or the horse could get a fright on a windy day or something and start spinning around, and we need to get the rider safe. So we teach the volunteers a safe way of being able to slide the rider off the horse's back very quickly in a very brisk movement, at the same time that the person leading the horse is swinging the horse so that his rear end is moving away from the rider and is unable to trample on the rider when we drag the rider very quickly onto the ground. And it sounds dramatic, but it's really safe, and that's what we have to do sometimes.
Do people with a disability find it more difficult to ride a horse with disability and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Some of them have no muscle tone or very, very low muscle tone. So whereas you and I can sense gravity and sense, oh, we're slipping to the side, let's right ourselves, some of them are unable to feel that sensation. So they could literally be sliding right off the animal and not be aware of it. Others, like I say, may get distracted and think, right, I'm getting off now, and not be aware that actually they're on an animal and they're 2 or 3 metres up in the air, and to just step off isn't appropriate. You actually need to dismount. So yeah, definitely there are some issues there that we have to work around.
If you would like to attend the volunteer day or find out more about this amazing place, You can visit equestriantherapycentre.co.nz or phone 07 544 1899. Most school students are back at school now, but they may still be settling in. Anne-Marie finds out how unpredictable these little ones can be.
Sergeant Vic Sneddon, welcome to Central News. Now, we discussed earlier in the week children heading back to school and what they need to be looking out for, but what do we as motorists need to be looking out for?
I guess my request of motorists would be to treat all schools as if your own children or your grandchildren were attending there. The same with school buses. The impact or the trauma of a crash involving a student is something that I want no one to experience. So we need to be watching out for children popping out between parked cars, slowing down to 20 k's, or even stopping if it's necessary around school buses, and just treating those children as the precious commodities that they are.
They are so unpredictable. You're so right about the popping out between the cars.
Anybody who's had children or has children knows that they're not the best at making good judgments when they're excited.
Has the 40k zone around the schools made a difference?
Certainly people are more aware of the schools. I don't know whether it's the enforcement aspect of it that's made a difference or people's just greater awareness of the risk to children.
Now, a big part of road safety and motorist safety is buckling up and making sure our children are safe in their seat belts. The new child restraints came into being October last year. My 11-year-old is around 140 centimetres tall, and the law says she should be in a restraint until she's 148 centimetres.
Yeah, the legislation is age related, so it's up to 7 now. So your wee 11-year-old is still able to be out of a child restraint. But my wife works for Plunkett. They're obviously at the forefront of car seat safety, and they have a 135 centimetre Plunkett nurse. So she uses a booster seat to drive the Plunkett cars, so she's a great advertisement. So legally, there's no requirement, but often the children would appreciate being able to see out of the vehicle. So we'll have some sort of cushioning or seat anyway.
I did suggest that to my 11-year-old. Funnily enough, she wasn't very impressed with the idea of being on a booster seat. What are some of the basic things we can teach our children about road safety?
Just that the road is danger. There's nothing safe about the road. Once you're on there, you've got to be on your game, and just to train them, just like we'd spend hours coaching them at their sports, teach them how to cross roads, teach them how to stop, look and listen, and how to comply with the instructions of other adults and crossing patrols. And
are sneaky driveways still a hot topic?
Certainly, my own driveway I can't see to the left at all, so there's a real risk at any time of kids whistling along on push bikes, striking our car. So the children are unaware of them, and we need to be, as adults, the ones who are safe.
Sergeant Vic Sneddon from the Morrinsville Police, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
That is the program for tonight. Like us on Facebook or email us news@tvcentral.co.nz to let us know about your own news story happening in your community. Join me again tomorrow night for more guests from in and around the Waikato and the Bay Plenty. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.